Hi, I'm James Van Osel, sitting on a dark Albany Park side street, and as I'm recording this, I'm about a week away from the first ever Car Con Carne live event, the first of 3 free live events to record and commemorate episode 1000. It's almost here, and it's an episode number big enough that I'm stretching it out over 3 events to get it all recorded. The first one is happening in Woodridge at Skeleton Key. I love the beer, love the vibes, love the place. I'm recording on Thursday the 26th, starting at 7 p.m. AM Taxi, the Ooozin, Ahhhs, and the Black and Blue Hearts all performing acoustic sets and doing interviews, and comedian Mike Stricker will be joining on stage. I'll be talking with all of them. They're going to be performing. Hopefully you will be there drinking and just hanging out, being part of the broadcast. Again, first of 3 events. I'd love to see you there in Woodridge, Thursday the 26th.
It's Car Con Carne. Let's meet in the car. It's Car Con Carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Osel.
Car Con Carne is a Q101 podcast. Let's try that a different way. Car Con Carne is a Q101 podcast. Car Con Carne is sponsored by Easy Automation, easy-automation.net. A smart home connects virtually all the technology in your home. With an Easy Automation installed smart home system, you and your family can control nearly every device and system in the house in ways that are easy and fun to use. Transform your living space with cutting-edge home automation. Experience seamless control over audio, video, security, climate, lighting, all of it. Embrace the future of smart living with a smart home. It's your home. It's your rules. Get a quote by visiting easy-automation.net or call my friend, my brother, Dan. 630-730-3728, 630-730-3728. I am joined on the street. I'm joined on Cicero by Maxx McGathey. He is a Chicago composer, best known for his work with Gramps the Vamp. His solo album, his very first one, Imaginary Eyes, comes out on September 27th. Thanks for jumping in the car. We've never met.
Thank you.
There's always something kind of weird about meeting someone for the first time as we're eating food in a parked car.
Yeah.
So thank you for being cool with that.
Yeah, no problem.
Very nice to meet you. We're in front of Roma's on Cicero, which is, 2 blocks south of Montrose.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy Roma's. The service here is quirky, but the food is good, and you ordered an Italian beef.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered the Hot Doug's Atomic Combo, which is Italian beef and sausage combo, but the sausage is Hot Doug's Atomic Sausage.
That's awesome. I didn't realize they had hot dogs here.
This is one, I think, a handful of places, if even a handful, that serves Hot Doug's products. The Atomic Sausage, this was not a smart move. It's hot. It's spicy. So my nose will run as we talk.
All good.
I will sweat.
It's like a reverse Hot Ones.
I don't know. So feel free to bust open your beef. This is what guys do in Chicago on a weeknight. We just go out for Italian beef. So this is the Atomic Combo. The sausage looks like it's seen better days, but I know it's delicious. And I do sweet peppers when I'm doing the hot sausage because Jardinera and the Atomic Sausage would, in fact, kill me. Used to the straightforward beef.
Mm-hmm.
I got them. Isn't that great when I ask you a question as you've got a mouthful of Italian beef?
It's great.
I got these dry just because we're in a car and I'm trying to make this less of a contact sport for my guests. I don't know that it's going to work, but... So, all right, Imaginary Eyes, September 27th.
Mm-hmm.
Record release show happening at Constellation. That's at Constellation on October 11th.
Yes.
So you got a busy fall coming your way.
Yeah, very busy. Very busy.
Let's talk about the album. This started as a solo piano thing?
Yeah. I was... I had just released the third Gramps the Vamp album in 2020. Mm-hmm. The whole world was shut down. And I was just home alone with my piano, my upright piano that I had from childhood. which I'm lucky enough to
I was
going to
say that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's like felt like an old friend, especially during this time where, we were very isolated.
The world was ending.
I'm gonna move this closer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was just playing every day. I mean, I had tons of time, and like most people, and was just playing piano. And with Gramps the Vamp, I usually do like electric keyboards, like Rhodes, Whirly, organs, and stuff like that. But I just started playing piano again, and it felt like it just felt so great and such a like callback to like how I grew up. Grew up as a piano player, and I hadn't really done that primarily for a really long time. And so,
Had you intended at any point to stray from Gramps the Vamp? Or did this kind of like happen as like a happy accident?
I didn't really know, actually, because at first I was like, how am I going to work this into Gramps the Vamp? And I was just thinking like what are the horns going to do? I'm writing all these string parts, I ended up, as it grew and as it became a bigger and bigger thing, and also just like the vibe of it. It's a lot like, there's a lot of darkness in Gramps, but Gramps is also kind of like, it's like a fun band. It's like a very, like danceable band. And this is like more moody, more jazz focused, more sometimes orchestral. And the vibe just seemed very much, very different. And I eventually was just like, a few members of Gramps the Vamp. I was writing all this music, not really thinking about not really trying to decide right away what I was going to do with all of it. Just kind of letting like my pen go. And eventually, like a few members because it was the pandemic, a few members of Gramps the Vamp moved away from Chicago, and Gramps the Vamp, still a band, but was a little more dormant. And I was like, well, this is an opportunity to like try something new. And
it all kind of lined up for
my own name. Yeah.
I love it. So who did you end up working with on this if the Gramps members moved?
There's one guy who is a recent like the last 3-4 years Gramps the Vamp member, Wills McKenna, who plays flute and tenor sax on my record. But most of these people are people who haven't been associated with that band. Matt Smulligan on drums. I've got Justin Peterson on bass. I've got Sam Genualdi on guitar. And then I've got a whole string section of people that really I've just picked out of the classical scene here in Chicago, which is...
Wait, let's stop there. Yeah. There's a classical scene. This is something, I mean, for people who might watch or listen on a regular basis, are probably more plugged into indie punk type scenes. Tell me about the classical scene, and then I want you to finish that thought.
Well, I wouldn't call myself like a member of the classical scene. I'm not a...
You're adjacent?
I studied classical piano when I was growing up, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of people who play in new music orchestras, like small ensembles that are making music by living composers, people who live here in Chicago and all around the world, really. And Chicago is definitely one of those premier places for like new classical music, kind of boundary pushing classical music. And so I've got names from through the grapevine of people who are here studying or doing gigs, and I've got 4 great players. Molly Reif on cello, Matthew Ronsky on viola, and then on violin, Brenna Krauge and Michael Nebeker. And the 4 of them have been a fantastic string section to play with, and they've really. This is the first time I've written anything of this scope for strings. I did a little bit of it on the last Gramps the Vamp album, but it was very simple, and this was just another level of in scope and how much of it, but also like the difficulty level of all the parts. And all four of these players were so gracious with me and really like lent their time and allowed me to like ask them questions. We workshopped things, and they were a really big part in like helping bring all of that to life.
So this was a stretch project for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I learned so much writing this music, arranging this music, getting this band together. It was stuff that I had never done before, and I wanted to work with people I had never worked with before, and I wanted to really expand my my horizons with this, and especially from that dark time in 2020 when we're, you know, just kind of sitting alone. It's like, yeah, I want to meet a bunch of new people. I want to play with a bunch of new people, and that's kind of like just naturally how it progressed.
So I'll let you take a bite. The album is Imaginary Eyes. It's out on September 27th. Again, the release show happening at Constellation. Opener, Dark Canyon, that's happening on Friday, October 11th. You can nod or shake your head. How's the beef?
It's good. Yeah. It's got a good flavor.
It's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I like it. And, of course, we're in the glory days of Italian beef thanks to television.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's weird.
Didn't see that coming.
No, that's like our own thing, and all of a sudden, people coming in from town are asking, "What's your favorite beef place?"
Mm-hmm. I keep coming back to this notion, and I'm sure you'll agree, that a good instrumental tells a story without words. Mm-hmm. Listening to these songs, I mean, this is like movie score stuff. Where do other than isolation, where do these ideas come from?
Yeah, well,
are you telling stories? I guess is the other question.
I like to talk about these pieces as narrative, in that they are really like they don't necessarily have like a character or like here's the plot. I'm writing out the plot beside it, but it's like an emotional narrative, and it's something that you know, I'm really trying to do. I'm trying to subvert the listener's expectation. I'm trying to give you surprises. I'm trying to really play with the dynamics of the piece and really squeeze as much emotion and feeling out of these musical ideas as I can. But I grew up in a movie-loving family, and I grew up watching a lot of classic films. My dad would always put on black and white films on Sundays, and we would just like kind of sit around watching movies, and it was like, you know, my sister ended up like studying film in school, and like it's just we're just a family that loves movies, and so I grew up with a lot of that, and I grew up with those sounds going through my ears all the time. And I remember as a kid, like when I was, you know, classically trained, but I was wanting to learn something for myself, and I'm like, I want to learn like Mission Impossible theme, and I want to learn, you know, like I wanted to learn all these like movie scores, all like Lord of the Rings, and it's great music, and I think that's kind of like made its way back to me, and
I hear it,
informed the cinematic quality of this music, because yeah, it's very, yeah, I mean, I like describing it as cinematic because it kind of captures that it's instrumental, but it's going to bring you somewhere. It's going to take you places.
Well, the release of the album was preceded by The Staircase. Mm-hmm. The piano's front and center on that one. If you had told me before I heard it that this is something from a 1960s thriller, I would have believed it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like time traveling back to a different era.
Yeah, and I definitely get that. I wear that influence on my sleeve. I wanted, when I was like writing all these, I wasn't necessarily thinking that, but then when I had to choose like an instrument, like an orchestra, like what's my orchestra going to be? Like, am I going to have, like, is this going to be like a guitar and like electric keyboard band, or is this going to, you know, is this going to be like orchestral, or like, you know, am I going to have, how many woodwinds am I going to have? All that kind of idea. I was thinking about that era and using that as like a jumping off point, and then from there trying to do my own thing with it. So I wanted the sound to have a very familiar like feel, like mm-hmm. So it's accessible, like people like, you know, have heard this kind of ensemble before, but I wanted to do some crazy things with it and really kind of like kind of hit you on the head with all of my ideas and energy.
So many ideas. The noir vibes on the appropriately titled Midnight.
That's a favorite of mine, actually, from the album. Yeah. It
Was that earlier or later in the process of building this?
That was one that I played with the intro on the piano. I played with that for a long time, not really knowing. I'm like,
You just couldn't find the song?
I it's like I had that piano part, but I didn't know like what else, how to make it like a full piece. And I loved that piano part, and I was playing with it for a long time, like not knowing if it was going to be part of this project, if it would be something by Gramps, or if it would be something, I don't know, if it would be something to put lyrics to in a melody. You know, I didn't really know what it was going to be, but eventually, like, it kind of took on a more somber tone, and then it really, the noir kind of came out in that one, and I really there's this build section in it, which I've got the drummer Matt playing like kind of a break beat kind of thing, and it brings in a lot of energy. So there's this very like swing, it's like the swing jazz era, but like film noir kind of, but then it has like these other elements that like interrupt.
Now, as we're recording this, the album comes out a week and a half from when we're recording this. The Veil is Thinnest was just released as a second single. When you're done eating Italian beef, and this is the hardest part of doing this podcast, is asking my guests questions and then realizing I'm the only one who has time to eat here. It really isn't fair. It's almost like a cruel prank. Talk to me about the second single.
Yeah.
When you're done chewing,
Yeah.
please chew your food. I don't want you to.
Okay. The Veil is Thinnest. This one's built on a very like simple variation on 5/1, which is like one of the most basic progressions you can do on piano, but the specific voicing of it just worked so well I just fell in love with that like kind of intriguing dark sound of the voicing that I had for these chords and the extensions that I was using. And I've got like kind of a smooth like flute mixed with guitar thing going on at first, but then it kind of devolves or gets crazy and goes into this kind of psychedelic realm where flute and guitar are both playing through delay, and there's all that going on while I wrote this like background string part that's sort of rising gradually and kind of building tension. And then I once again just had Matt, the drummer, just kind of go off on this and just like he's so good at just like ad-libbing something great. So I feel like every take we had of that song was different. But and then it just like the way I like to describe it is the floor just like gives out, and all of a sudden it's just piano, and then after the piano states this like really romantic melody, the full orchestra comes back in and hits you, and then there's a great sax solo by Wills McKenna, who is a shredder. I mean, I can't describe him any other way. He's just an amazing musician, and he plays in a lot of different groups in Chicago, and was super lucky not only to have him play on this, but to call him a friend. And yeah, it's got a lot going on in that song, but it's a journey, like how I want most of those songs to be.
Thinking about it, like I mentioned earlier, I've got punks and indie kids and rockers who listen to this podcast. I like to think of this album and what you're doing as instrumental music for people who think they don't like instrumental music.
I describe it exactly like that.
Do you really?
I do. Yeah, I'm like when I'm like writing something up about like, what do you do as an artist? It's like, well, I like to make instrumental music for people who don't like instrumental music. It's not. I don't want to be esoteric. I don't want to be like making something that you have to have a music degree to appreciate. Like I just kind of hate that idea. I want to tell stories and yeah, and I want you to feel like there's so much going on that you like don't know where to listen for or where to look. If you're at the show, you don't know where to look because there's like, I'm hitting you with things from both sides, and yeah, that's exactly how I like to describe what I do.
I love that. Now, knowing how this all started during the pandemic, isolation, you rekindling your love for the piano, the end of the album, Dark Days, Bright Nights, it seemed to me like just a symbolic, optimistic way to wrap things up. But knowing the background, I suspect there's more to that.
Yeah, I came up with that tune and that title like when I was just like walking around, like during that year of 2020 and a part of 2021. I just remember like taking walks around my neighborhood in Logan Square at the time, and it was just like no one was out. It was like dark, and all the lights were glistening, and it was just like really peaceful, and yeah, and so like I don't know, I kind of like liked that contrast and of the times being really difficult, but like finding some kind of solitude in it. And I think that is another, I think in various ways each of these tunes can encapsulate the full album, but I think that concept of it being a really dark time but having something really beautiful come from it is a big one. And yeah, I actually, the ending, like you said, it kind of feels like it ends on a hopeful note, but the ending originally had like a dark ending, and it had like a really like at the beginning there's or various times throughout the track there's these like swells of strings, and it's really ominous, and then it kind of gives way and goes back to some more solos or some more music. And I had one of those swells, the most intense swell. It took a lot of self-control to cut that from the album, because I really loved that like 25-second bit of music, because I was literally like, when my string players were in the studio, I was like directing them like this, like go this way, go that way, and giving them all these crazy directions. And so it just sounds like cacophonous and beautiful, but something compelled me to just end it on this one piano note, this really bright kind of hopeful note. It just felt like a artistically like more fitting ending.
I get that. So listening to you talk, you're having fun. Like,
yeah,
you're fired up as you talk about this stuff. I feel that. Going to let's talk about the other fun thing you do. Where does this leave Gramps the Vamp?
Gramps the Vamp is still a band, and we have a lot of music that we wrote this past spring. Actually, we all got together and wrote a bunch of stuff, but just because of the stage of life in which a bunch of the members are in, we weren't able to like finish all that music. But we've got like, we met up for like a whole weekend and just played for like 30 hours or something, and there's we definitely have something left in us, but I'm really trying to focus on this right now.
Yeah, of course.
And bringing that, introducing like what I can do as like a solo composer, and focusing on that. But Gramps has something left in it for sure.
Excellent. Okay, so Imaginary Eyes is the album that we're talking about, out on Friday the 27th of September. We can celebrate that with the live performance where we won't know where to look on October 11th at Constellation. I love the way this sounds.
Thank you.
I think that this is an awesome and auspicious solo debut.
Thank you. I appreciate that wording.